Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons breakdown video with myself and Sloth today. An interesting link, obviously midfield's a position we're definitely emphasising, probably more so now Alvarez has picked up that hamstring injury. We don't know how long it's going to be, Sloth, but it's not really a direct replacement for Alvarez. It's more of an 8 replacement, but Ismaël Koné of Watford. Links coming out now, ex-WHU employee, obviously mentioned that we hold a strong interest in the Watford midfielder. And he's being estimated at a value of around £15 million to kind of get him from Watford. It's an interesting one because, yeah, we'll get onto the breakdown on him in a second and what his best attributes are. But in terms of bringing in that midfield kind of presence, we need to do it. We need to replace and we need to kind of bolster that number 8 position that's been lacking for a while now. And just to give a kind of quick overview for those who aren't familiar with Kone, currently at Watford, still only 22 years old. Best position, again, is that kind of central midfield, box-to-box 8. Right-footed, market value of around 11 million euros, but it's going to be slightly higher than that to get him from Watford. Around 6'1", plays for Canada, and his contract ends in 2027. So it's an interesting link because we've been linked with the likes of Fofana, so many different midfielders over the past couple of seasons, Sloth. This is a new name, but it's someone that's, again, probably one of the more standout talents from the Championship. What do you make of the link to Kone? Originally it was kind of like, will he be a direct replacement for Alvarez? But I think we can very quickly dismiss that and explain why.
Yeah, as you said, he's much more of a box-to-box centre mid. And he's a player I included in our babbling list pre the January window as someone that I'd like to see added. So I've watched him quite a few times in that Watford side. As I think most Watford fans will tell you, both Kone and Asprilla are the only 2 real players that look ready or look capable of making the step up into the Premier League. I don't think I would upset any Watford fans by saying that. No. But he's very much someone who drives the ball well. He's got a good passing range, and he's quick as well. So he's willing to put himself about. The thing that I covered in the thread, and I think is probably the biggest weakness of his game, is his overall sort of aerial ability. Mm-hmm. I think that's the side of his game that is really lacking. And for someone who's 6'1" and is physically built, I think that's quite surprising because it won't take much to coach that in. I think especially if you were to look at playing alongside Souček or someone like Alvarez, then they're going to demand that from you. So while we're happy to highlight the fact that he's a very good ball carrier, his close control is good. Sometimes he can be a little bit rash in his decision making, or some of his passing can be a little bit loose, but he works hard to get it back, and that's really what you want to see.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as we touched on there, looking at his kind of his output in the final third, you can kind of see here he is more than just that holding position. He is definitely more of a box-to-box player who has a decent finish on him and will look to get into those kind of areas to create things, but also score goals as well through his carries and through finding up the positions he finds himself in. And you can kind of see here on the left, in terms of the percentiles, he's pretty high in comparison to other midfielders in terms of the shots he's taking, around 1.62 per 90. The goals he's scoring as well. Again, this is compared to the other 14, so not the top 5 European leagues. But you can kind of see the type of player he is. Again, take-on percentage is quite high for shot creating actions. And again, kind of alluding to shot creating actions, he's quite high up in the percentile, in the 80th percentile there. So whether that's drawing fouls, you can see there he's in the 90th percentile for fouls drawn to create a shot creation action, which is really high, which again suggests to us that he is someone that's going to carry the ball, draw those fouls. And then again, if you've got someone like you mentioned, Souček in the team for those set pieces to kind of combine with that, or Ward-Prowse delivering them, again, we'd have to figure out the balance of the squad, but it's a great asset to have. And we did a little bit of research on Kone before. I spoke to Jack, one of my Watford mates. So yeah, shout out to Jack for the info. But he was kind of saying he's definitely not a 6. This season, he's been very inconsistent because basically Watford have been terrible and very inconsistent themselves. Isn't more of the PG way of putting what he said. But he's definitely someone who drops deep. And you know, a good comparison as well that he made to someone at West Ham not that long ago was Declan Rice when he was striding with the ball. Not defensively the same, but when he picked up the ball and progressed it and carried it, you know, covers that ground really, really easily. And, you know, for someone that's 22 years old, Sloth, it's definitely one of the smarter signings that we could go for this summer.
Yeah, I agree. And I look, there's been a number of midfielders in the Championship who've really shone this season, and I think when you look at the likes of Gabriel Sauer at Norwich, you know, Hackney and names like that, he's not necessarily garnered as much attention as them.
Yeah.
But I think he's got just as much potential, and it's the fact that, as you mentioned, he's got that ball carrying ability, and if you could add a few more elements, refine some of his game, I think you could see a really great player there. It's the sort of thing where if you're looking to throw someone into a cup game, you know, he's playing in the Championship, so he very much gets the physicality of the game, but he's also going to be willing to do that as opposed to someone like maybe Thuram or Kone, who would probably expect to start. And if you're looking to rotate in or bring him off the bench, I'm not saying that these players have got bad attitudes, by the way, but just perhaps when you're looking to make those changes and rotate players in, he's going to be happier to do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's been missing from our midfield for so long is the balance. I think we've had different players at certain times that would have made up a nice profile or blend. We just haven't had it at the same time. And I think we're in the best position now to do that if we sign that kind of ball carrying, deep playing, ball carrying midfielder, who can drive with the ball and just it just adds to that solidity, doesn't it? And he's still only 22 years old, so there's obviously loads of room for development. And again, we can kind of see here what type of player he is. I mean, it's alluding to the fact that he's not someone that's going to be, you know, creating loads of chances through amazing passes. He's not like a Paqueta number 8, if you kind of compare it with that. But you can kind of see he will look to try and pass into the final third. He will look to create things through his progression. And on the right-hand side there, you know, take-ons attempted around 2.64 per 90 minutes, which puts him in the 90th percentile. And successful take-ons, you know, really 1 in 2 he's completing. And again, you can kind of see the progressive carry distance, 103 yards per 90, total carry distance, progressive carries into the final third, into the penalty area. He's someone that's going to drive forwards with the ball. And I think we lack that when we don't have Kudus centrally. As an example, you know, how many times did we play a midfield of Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta, or Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, Souček? You know, there isn't someone that's going to drive and carry that midfield. You know, they're very safe players. Paqueta's not got the burst of pace or the type of profile to do that. Kudus is the one really, who rarely plays central for us. So hopefully we see that more next season. But in terms of the names we've been linked with, obviously the likes of Yusuf Fofana, who would be perfect for that role, Manu Kone, Thuram, like players we've put in our threads before. This is maybe a cheaper alternative to that, and someone that's still only young, 22 years old. And do you think it's more of a realistic transfer target to go for? And again, with the sheer number of work we need to do this summer, it could actually be one of our smarter signings of the summer if we can get it over the line.
I think so. I think it's very important to kind of state just how big of an impact Paqueta's situation can have on the window, because I think if we're bringing him in and then we're looking at, say, bringing in Kone from Borussia Mönchengladbach, then we could do that if Paqueta's sold. You know, if he makes his release clause, we can do that with ease, and that's the sort of thing that's going to cover Max Kilman transfer fee. It's going to cover multiple midfielders potentially, and then you're going to be looking at going, well, can we find more of an attacking element? So I think when you look at it financially, it's, you know, from him to Borussia Mönchengladbach's Kone, it's not a massive leap, but in terms of the wages and in terms of kind of the agent's fees, and then the fact that probably rotating in, he's going to be happier to do it. I think that's where it's kind of key. We were just talking before we came on air, and I think that, you know, a key part of this transfer is finding a bit of central defensive mid-depth. And if we can add a free signing like Ndidi and put him in there and say, you know, we're going to give you the first few games of the season, depending on how Alvarez's injury is. And, you know, if you play well, you're going to keep that position for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, Alvarez has got to get a full pre-season under his belt and then fight for that place. I think that'll be key, because you can't just lump him into a position that he's not familiar with.
Yeah.
And you can't expect him to be going into a league that is a step up and doing that while learning a new position. So
yeah,
I think adding depth and being able to put someone next to him who's a lot more disciplined is what's going to see him develop as a player.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think with football now, I think it often gets underlooked that the balance of a starting 11, the way you set up, is so important. And I think, you know, we're all for getting the best players in and playing the best, you know, players. I think England's a prime example of that over the past couple of games, right? With the system and the players trying to fit in. You know, you're trying to squeeze in the likes of Foden on the left. Like, it's not the way to operate anymore. You're better profiling what you need and getting the balance of the squad right. And I think someone like Kone, as we mentioned, you don't want to shoehorn him into the six. Like, it's just negating all of his qualities. You're not going to see the best version of him. Fans will get frustrated with what he is, what he's producing. And again, like, even looking at his defensive statistics, they're not incredible. You know, in terms of the tackles won, you know, the interceptions per 90, the amount he's making. He's not really, you know, the industrial type of an Alvarez who's going to sweep up and be the six. That's not his game. Obviously, he needs to work on and be solid defensively in the Premier League. It's a massive step up, and playing in that number 8 position alongside a Kudus or a Paqueta, you're going to have to do a lot of defensive work as well. But the primary focus of Kone coming in is to be that ball carrier, to be that link between, say, a Kudus, Bowen, and whoever the striker is going to be front three. So he's valued at 11 million euros on Transfermarkt. It's been reported he's going to take around 15 million pounds to get this deal done. What would you rate the transfer out of 10, Sloth, if that was the case and we got this done for 15 million?
For 15 million pounds, I'd probably give it a 7 or an 8. I think that's more sort of basing my optimism in the fact that we're happy to rotate in, and you know, come off the bench, factor in cup games and things like that. I think having a player like him is something we've lacked. And even if we don't sign another midfielder, if we add and keep Paqueta, if we have Souček, Alvarez, Paqueta around him, then that's also going to be a sort of, it's a very disciplined and hard-working, industrious midfield that can kind of help him out a bit and help that step up. So I would rate it quite highly, and I think there's definitely a player there. I also think there's a bit of marketing potential as well, with the Canadian side of things, and hopefully grow the fan base over there as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a good point, actually. A couple of weeks ago, he was man of the match against France when he played for Canada, and he was, you know, you can search up the highlights of that game. He was fantastic. So yeah, I think for me, it'd probably be around a 6.5, 7, just because, as you mentioned, he's probably not someone that's going to be expected to go straight into the first team. You know, it's more of a squad addition, which we 100% need. But if this was a signing where they're just going to come in straight, first, like a Fofana, it goes up to like an 8.5 or 9, like instantly. So he's still got a lot to learn. I think he's got really good potential. He's shown some fantastic qualities in the Championship for Watford so far. And yeah, I think it would be a really smart deal to get that done. And people saying like, oh, could we not just keep Flynn Downs? As we've mentioned here, completely different profile of player. So it's not just one in, one out. It's a different type of player. So yeah, that's our thoughts on it. That's our breakdown. Let us know in the comments what you think about Ismaël Koné. Would you like to see him in a West Ham shirt this summer? And if you enjoyed the breakdown, please do leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you irons.